Let me start this Ronaldo story in a way you've probably never heard before. Because the real drama isn't the goals, it's what happens around the goals. Think about it. Millions of people watch one man for 90 minutes and then judge his entire life in 9 seconds. One miss, one facial expression, one clip, one headline. And suddenly, he's either a legend or finished. Now, here's the hidden part most people don't see. Cristiano Ronaldo has been fighting 2 matches his whole career. One on the pitch and one against the world outside it. The cameras, the comparisons, the "he's not the same anymore" talk, the "he's selfish" talk, the "he can't do it without" talk. The pressure of being the face of a country, the pressure of being a brand, the pressure of being a symbol for fans who don't even know him but feel like they own him. And the wild thing is, he doesn't just survive that pressure, he reinvents himself inside it. There are moments in his career where it looks like he's done. Not because he's injured, not because he can't play, but because the world decides his story for him. You can literally feel it happen in real time. The internet turns, the tone changes, the jokes start, the clips get edited, the comments become brutal. And in that exact moment, when most athletes shrink or disappear or get comfortable, Ronaldo does something else. He rebuilds. New style, new role, new body, new routines, new way of scoring, new way of leading, new way of surviving. That's what this video is really about. Ronaldo versus the world. The hidden war no one knows about. Not the obvious stuff you already know, not a highlights reel. We're going to talk about the stuff that makes his story feel almost unreal when you connect it. How a kid from Madeira ends up obsessed with control. Why he reacts to pressure the way he does. What happens mentally when you're praised like a god one week and mocked the next. Why he keeps changing even when changing is risky. And how Portugal's expectations can feel like a weight nobody else carries. And I'm not going to sell you motivation. I'm going to show you the pattern. Because once you see the pattern, you'll understand why Ronaldo's career didn't just happen. It was engineered through pressure, criticism, and constant reinvention. So, before we go back to the beginning, let me give you the map of what you're about to hear, so you can see exactly where this story is going and why each era feels like a different battle. Ronaldo's story begins far from the big stadiums. It begins on a small Portuguese island in the Atlantic, Madeira, in the city of Funchal. Madeira is the kind of place where people know each other, where life can feel small, and where big dreams usually stay as dreams. Because the real football world is on the mainland. That's important, because from the very start, Ronaldo grows up with a quiet reality in the background. If you want a bigger life, you eventually have to leave. Cristiano Ronaldo dos Santos Aveiro was born in 1985. He came from a working-class home. His mother, Maria Dolores, worked hard to support the family. His father, José Diniz Aveiro, worked jobs connected to local football, including helping with equipment at a small club. Later, Ronaldo has spoken about his father's struggles with alcohol and how complicated that relationship became. But early on, what matters is the environment. This was not a childhood built around luxury or comfort. It was a make-it-work kind of home. And here's a detail most people don't even know. Ronaldo was reportedly named Ronaldo because his father liked the name of the US president at the time, Ronald Reagan. It's a small thing, but it tells you something about how random life starts. Because nobody in that house was planning a global brand. They were just living day to day. From a young age, Ronaldo was obsessed with football in a way that bothered people. Not he likes to play, more like if he lost, he took it personally. If someone beat him, it stayed in his head. People who grew up around him have described him as intense and emotional. He didn't hide how much he cared. And on a small island, that kind of intensity stands out. His first club as a kid was Andorinha, a local team in Madeira. It wasn't glamorous, small pitches, basic resources, but it gave him what he needed. Minutes on the ball, constant games, constant proving. Then he moved to Nacional, one of the bigger clubs on the island, where the level was higher and the attention was stronger. But even if you're the best kid in Madeira, there's a ceiling. Scouts and academies on the mainland are where careers really get built. And that's where Sporting CP comes in, one of Portugal's biggest clubs, known for developing young talent. Now here's the first real war in Ronaldo's life. Before fame, before money, before headlines. Leaving home too early. Around age 12, Ronaldo leaves Madeira and moves to Lisbon to join Sporting's academy. That's a massive change for any child. You're not just switching clubs, you're switching your whole world. New city, new culture, new routine, new teammates who are also the best kids from their regions. And you're suddenly far from your family, living in an academy environment where football is your daily job. This part of the story isn't usually shown properly. People say it like it's a simple step. He joined Sporting. But in real life, leaving at 12 means you're basically growing up without the normal safety net. And Ronaldo was not entering an easy, gentle system. A top academy is competitive. Everyone is talented. If you fall behind, you can disappear. And on top of that, he stood out. His Madeira accent was different. Reports from his youth mention he was teased for how he spoke. He got homesick. There are stories that he cried and struggled emotionally at times. Again, this is not motivational. It's information about what pressure looks like when you're a child trying to survive a high-pressure environment. And here's the part that becomes a pattern later. A lot of kids go home. Ronaldo didn't. Instead, he started changing how he lived. This is where the early version of his famous discipline shows up, not in dramatic speeches, but in small habits. Staying after sessions, asking to train more, focusing on speed and technique, trying to outwork the people around him. Coaches and teammates have often described him as someone who wanted extra reps, extra time, extra improvement. But there's another moment from his youth that most fans don't know, and it's one of the biggest suspense points in the early story because it could have slowed everything down. As a teenager, Ronaldo was diagnosed with a heart rhythm problem, often described as a rapid heartbeat issue. The key point is, it needed a procedure. That's a scary thing for a young athlete. Your whole future depends on your body, and suddenly, there's a medical problem that could interrupt your career. He underwent treatment, commonly reported as a procedure that corrected the issue, and he returned to training quickly. And when you look back at the rest of his career, you realize how early he learned a lesson most athletes only learn later. Your career can change overnight, even when you're doing everything right. So by the time he's rising inside Sporting, he's already carrying a strange mix: confidence with the ball, urgency to improve, and a fear of losing time. On the pitch, the young Ronaldo is known for being fearless, taking on defenders, trying skills, playing like he wasn't interested in being safe. But that also created a different kind of pressure. People start saying the same thing you'll hear again later in his career. He's talented, but is he effective? Because when a teenager is doing stepovers and tricks, adults can dismiss it as showboating. So Ronaldo is growing while being watched by two groups at the same time: coaches looking for end product and opponents already trying to kick him out of games because they're annoyed by him. Now, Sporting moves him fast. He plays for youth teams, then for higher age groups, and eventually he breaks into Sporting's first-team environment. That's not normal. Most kids don't climb that quickly unless something is obvious. And this is where the story starts to feel like it's about to explode. Because there's a specific kind of moment that changes a young player's life. Not when fans notice you, when decision-makers notice you. And Ronaldo is approaching that moment. Because once a player looks dangerous at first-team level, the next step is brutal. The world starts circling. Scouts, agents, bigger clubs, media. Pressure that doesn't care how old you are. So here's what we've built so far, just facts in motion. A kid from Madeira with limited resources, leaves home at 12, gets tested socially and emotionally, gets tested medically, progresses fast anyway. And now he's one step away from becoming a global story. And the next part isn't about what club did he join, like a Wikipedia page. It's about what happens when the spotlight hits, when your mistakes become memes, when your confidence becomes arrogance, and when the entire world starts watching your next move like it's a verdict. So now we move into the next chapter, career journey and reinventions, where Ronaldo's life speeds up, the pressure becomes global, and he starts changing again and again, because staying the same is how careers die. So now the spotlight hits. And once it hits Ronaldo, it never really leaves. The first thing to know is the moment that flips his life from promising kid to global story happens fast. And it happens in a way that feels like a movie. In 2003, Sporting play a friendly against Manchester United for the opening of Sporting's new stadium. United have a squad full of experienced pros. Ronaldo is still a teenager. But that night, he doesn't play like a kid trying to impress. He plays like someone trying to take someone's job. He runs at defenders. He keeps asking for the ball. He keeps trying again, even after losing it. And here's what's crazy. It wasn't just the fans who noticed. The players did too. By the time the game ends, the story goes that United's players were basically telling their manager, "We need this guy. Not next year, not keep an eye on him, now." Within days, Ronaldo is at Manchester United. And that's where the hidden war begins in public. Because England is not patient with young flair players. If you show skills and you don't score, people don't call it talent. They call it showboating. If you dive once, they call you a diver forever. If you celebrate too hard, they call you arrogant. The spotlight in the Premier League doesn't just follow you, it tests you. Ronaldo arrives wearing the famous number 7 shirt, an iconic number at United. That's not just marketing, that's pressure. Because now the expectation isn't be good, it's be special. At first, he's exactly what people remember: explosive, unpredictable, full of tricks. But early Ronaldo in England is also raw. He can beat a man, then make the wrong final pass. He can light up a crowd, then frustrate his coach. And the English media and fans are ruthless about that. This is reinvention number 1, turning flair into output. And it doesn't happen by magic. It's built in repetition, training, decisions, learning when to do the extra touch and when to do the simple thing. It's the moment a young player realizes entertainment isn't enough anymore. Then comes Euro 2004. And this is one of those early war moments people forget. Ronaldo is just 19, playing a major tournament at home. Portugal reach the final and lose. He cries on the pitch. Some people saw it as drama, but it's actually information. He cares in a way that's almost uncomfortable. He doesn't do cool acceptance. He takes it personally. Now, here's where the story gets darker. 2006 World Cup. Portugal versus England. The match becomes famous for one controversial moment involving Rooney's red card and Ronaldo's reaction. Overnight, in England, Ronaldo goes from exciting star to public enemy in some corners. The backlash is intense. Booing, hostility, the kind of hate that follows you in every away stadium. This is a turning point because most players would either leave, hide, or soften their style. Ronaldo does something else. He comes back to United and puts together one of the most productive seasons of his life. 2007 to 08 is where the transformation becomes obvious. He's no longer just a winger with tricks. He becomes a goal-scoring machine from wide positions, headers, long shots, cutting inside, timing his runs. And the suspense here is that even when he reaches the top, the pressure doesn't stop. In the 2008 Champions League final, he scores a header, then later misses his penalty in the shootout. If United lose, that miss becomes his legacy. But they win anyway, and the story becomes something else. How close the biggest moments are to flipping your entire career narrative. After that season, he wins the Ballon d'Or. He's on top of the world. And then he makes the move that turns pressure into a permanent lifestyle. Real Madrid, 2009. A world record fee at the time. Now, you're not just a footballer, you're an investment, you're an expectation. Every game is judged like a financial report. And here's what people miss about Madrid Ronaldo. The biggest reinvention isn't a skill move, it's positioning. At Madrid, he gradually shifts from being a touchline winger into a more direct, central goal scorer. He becomes terrifying in the box. His off-the-ball movement becomes sharper. His finishing becomes colder. He stops needing 5 touches to create a moment. He learns to end matches with 1 touch. This is reinvention number 2, from entertainer to finisher. And it happens in an era where Madrid is obsessed with one thing: being the biggest club in the world. That means pressure isn't seasonal, it's weekly. Add the rivalry narrative, especially the Messi comparisons, and the war becomes global. Every goal is compared, every trophy is counted. Even when Ronaldo plays brilliantly, the conversation becomes, yes, but what about him? So what does Ronaldo do? He builds the most ruthless part of his identity: consistency. This is where fans start calling him a machine. Not because he's robotic, because he produces like someone who doesn't get tired of being judged. And to keep doing that, he becomes a routine person. Ronaldo is famous for being extremely controlled about training and recovery. Over the years, reports and teammates have described him as someone who trains beyond the session, treats recovery like training, protects sleep, food, and body composition like a job requirement, and obsesses over small details because small details keep you alive at the top. Now, the hidden war isn't just rivals, it's time. Because even in your early 20s, football is already trying to replace you. The sport doesn't wait. A new talent is always coming. And the scary thing about greatness is, the moment you relax, you become yesterday's story. In Madrid, he stacks goals at a rate that breaks logic. Records fall. Hat tricks become normal. He becomes the club's all-time top scorer. But even then, he's still under pressure to win the Champions League repeatedly, because at Madrid, one Champions League doesn't buy you peace. Then comes the stretch that defines his prime legacy. Multiple Champions League wins, including the era where Madrid dominate Europe again. And the story becomes bigger than goals. It becomes, he delivers in the biggest moments, repeatedly. Now here's the part people don't always connect. By the time he's leaving Madrid, Ronaldo has already completed another reinvention. He's not just a player anymore, he's a system. His movement, his timing, his finishing, his mentality. Teams build plans around him. Now we're in the part of Ronaldo's story that most people feel but don't know how to explain. Because it's not a trophy, it's not a goal. It's the invisible stuff that sits on top of him every time he walks onto a pitch. Ronaldo didn't just become famous, he became a constant global argument. There's a difference. When he scores, it trends. When he misses, it trends even harder. If he celebrates, people call it ego. If he doesn't celebrate, people call it attitude. If he smiles, they say he's arrogant. If he looks serious, they say he's toxic. The strangest part is that sometimes he can play well and still be the headline for the wrong reason. Because with Ronaldo, the world isn't only watching football. The world is watching a character. And that creates a kind of pressure most players never experience. You're not allowed to be just good. You're expected to be the moment. That's why his career has always had this weird rhythm. Not just match to match, narrative to narrative. One week, he's the hero, and the next week, you can literally feel the internet turning, like the crowd is waiting for a slip so they can say, "See, we told you." And here's the part people don't talk about. Living like that changes how you move through life. It makes you protective. It makes you controlled. It makes you obsessed with details. Because details become the only thing you can control when millions of opinions are flying at you. That's where Ronaldo's routines become more than fitness. They become armor. You'll hear people say, "He's a machine," and fans usually take that as a compliment. But it's also a clue. Because a machine doesn't wake up feeling uncertain. A machine follows a system. And Ronaldo built a system to survive the noise. How he trains, how he eats, how he sleeps, how he recovers, how he keeps his body within a specific performance range for years longer than most players. When people say discipline, they imagine motivation quotes. That's not what this is. This is engineering. This is someone treating his career like a long-term project where the enemy is time. Because the moment the world starts using one word around you, decline, it spreads like a virus. It doesn't even matter if you're still scoring. If you're Ronaldo, people don't judge you against other players. They judge you against the best version of yourself. So even a normal dip becomes a global trial. And Ronaldo has lived through these trials on repeat. Every era of his career comes with a new accusation. He's too flashy, too selfish, too focused on numbers, too emotional, too old, too slow, too much. Some criticism is fair, some is pure hate. But the result is the same. He's constantly being forced to respond. Sometimes he responds by scoring. Sometimes he responds by changing how he plays. Sometimes he responds in interviews in a way that creates even more controversy. That's part of the war too, because he's not a silent superstar. He reacts. He cares what people say. And that makes him human, but it also keeps the spotlight burning. Now let's talk about the enemy that fans almost never see clearly, the physical side. People love to talk about Ronaldo like he's invincible, but football is brutal on the body. Every sprint, every landing, every cut, every collision, those are little costs that add up. And when your game is built on speed, jumping, and explosive movement, the fear isn't just injury. The fear is losing a half step, losing the timing, losing the sharpness. So what does a player like Ronaldo do? He compensates early. He protects his body like it's a business asset. Recovery isn't optional. Sleep isn't when I'm tired. It's scheduled. Food isn't taste, it's function. Training isn't just practice, it's maintenance. That's why he could shift roles over time. When he was younger, he could destroy people with pure speed from wide areas. Later, as football got tighter and defenders got smarter, he didn't rely on beating 3 men anymore. He started relying on movement, timing, positioning, and finishing. That isn't just maturity, it's survival under pressure. And here's the suspense point that sits under his whole late career story. The thing people argue about without saying it directly. What happens when the one thing you've built your identity on starts to slip? Because for a normal player, aging is natural. For a legend, aging feels like a threat to your name. And for Ronaldo, who's been judged like a symbol, aging isn't private. It's public entertainment for critics. That's why you see him chase new challenges, new environments, new ways to stay relevant. Not just for money or fame, but because his brain is wired around being in the fight. He's one of those athletes who looks uncomfortable when life gets quiet. Like the noise is painful, but the silence is worse. And this is where the hidden war becomes emotional, not just physical. Because when you're Ronaldo, you're not allowed to be confused. You're not allowed to be weak. You're not allowed to have a bad month and just disappear. You're expected to carry pressure with a straight face, while millions of people debate whether you deserve respect. That kind of life does something to a person. It makes them intense. It makes them defensive. It makes them obsessed with proving. And it also explains why he can look so driven even after winning everything. Because the enemy isn't trophies. The enemy is being dismissed. So the hidden war is not, he works hard. Everybody works hard at that level. The hidden war is that he's been fighting to control his story while the world tries to write it for him, week after week, year after year. And now we're about to enter the heaviest arena of all, where the pressure is not just club fans or media narratives, it's a whole country. Because with Portugal, Ronaldo isn't just judged as a player. He's judged like a national responsibility. And that pressure has produced some of his greatest moments and some of his most painful ones. And this is where the pressure stops being football pressure and turns into something heavier. Because with Portugal, Ronaldo isn't just playing for a club, he's playing inside a national mood. Every tournament becomes a country-wide verdict. Hero, failure, savior, problem. Sometimes all in the same month. Ronaldo's Portugal story really starts to feel dramatic in Euro 2004, when Portugal hosted the tournament and somehow ended up in the final, only to lose to Greece. That loss hit like a national heartbreak, and Ronaldo was right there in the middle of it, still a teenager, already crying on the biggest stage. The detail most people forget is how early he became the face of Portugal's expectations, before he had even fully become Ronaldo. Then the World Cups begin, and the story gets complicated fast. Because at a club, you can lose and come back next week. At a World Cup, one bad night becomes a label that sticks for years. By 2006, Portugal reached the semi-finals, one of their best modern runs, and suddenly the country started treating Ronaldo like the key to a future title. That sounds like love, but it doesn't feel like love when you're living inside it. It feels like weight. And the weight peaks in a way people still don't fully appreciate until you look at Euro 2016 closely. Here's the hidden part that makes that tournament feel like a thriller. Portugal didn't even look like a champion early on. They got through the group stage with 3 draws, advancing as one of the best third-placed teams. That alone is a crazy detail because it means Portugal entered the knockouts with the world already doubting them. Then comes the Croatia match, one of the strangest, most tense knockout games you'll ever describe. It took extra time, and Portugal's winner came incredibly late. UEFA's own recap points out it was basically a game where almost nothing happened, until suddenly everything did, and Quaresma scored late in extra time to send Portugal through. That sets the tone of the whole run. Portugal kept surviving, sometimes ugly, sometimes tight, sometimes on tiny moments. They needed penalties to get past Poland, then beat Wales to reach the final. And then the final happens in France, and it turns into the defining image of Ronaldo's international career. He gets injured and is forced off around the 25th minute. It's the worst possible script for a captain. Your country's first major final in years against the host nation, and you're sitting down crying because your body won't let you finish the job. Portugal still win it, 1-0 in extra time, with Eder scoring the winner in the 109th minute. And suddenly, Ronaldo's story flips from always close to finally did it. That trophy is why his Portugal legacy can't be reduced to World Cups only. He delivered the one thing Portugal had never had in the modern era, a major international title. Now, here's where the World Cup pressure comes back in a different form. The moment Ronaldo wins something with Portugal, the expectations don't calm down, they multiply. Because now it's, you did it once, do it again at the World Cup. And in 2018, he gives one of the most iconic World Cup performances of his life. A hat-trick against Spain in a 3-3 match that felt like pure tension from start to finish. That's one of those nights where you understand why people say he feeds on pressure. It's not just scoring, it's scoring when the narrative is waiting to bury you. Then Portugal win the inaugural UEFA Nations League in 2019, beating the Netherlands 1-0 in the final. It's not the World Cup, but it becomes another piece of the legacy. Proof that Portugal, with Ronaldo as the central figure, could actually finish tournaments instead of just living on almost. And while all this is happening, Ronaldo is quietly building another record that adds even more pressure. He becomes the men's all-time international goals leader, with UEFA listing him as the record holder with 143 goals for Portugal as of late 2025. Think about what that does to a person. Your country doesn't just want you to play well, they expect you to be the answer every time the game gets tight. That's why the later years get so tense. Because at that point, Ronaldo isn't fighting to become a legend. He's fighting to protect the meaning of his legend in real time, while the world watches his aging process like a live experiment. So when people argue about his World Cups, or his role, or his minutes, what they're really arguing about is something deeper. They're arguing about whether a country should keep depending on the same symbol, or finally move on. And that argument becomes part of his Portugal story too, because Ronaldo's international career is not just goals and trophies. It's also the reality of being loved like a solution and criticized like a problem. And this is the part people argue about the least, but it might explain the most. Because when you strip away the stadium lights, the trophies, the headlines, the edits on social media, Ronaldo's life has always been built around one thing: control. Not in a power way, more like if he doesn't control his day, the world will control his story. That's why his personal life has always been protective. He shares just enough for people to feel close, but not enough for anyone to fully get inside. And if you've watched him for years, you can see the pattern. When the noise outside gets louder, he gets more structured, more careful, more focused on family, routine, and staying in his own lane. He's also a father, something that changes the way you see his story if you think about it properly. Because being Ronaldo means your kids don't get a normal life. Your relationships don't get normal privacy. Even your quiet moments become content for strangers. So the hidden war isn't only on the pitch or in the media, it's also the constant job of protecting your people while the world keeps trying to pull your life into the spotlight. And here's the real takeaway from all of this. Not motivation, just a fact you can't ignore after hearing the full story. Ronaldo didn't stay relevant because he got lucky. He stayed relevant because he kept adapting while pressure kept changing shape. Different clubs, different leagues, different roles, different expectations, different criticism cycles. And somehow, the same person keeps finding ways to survive it. So whether you love him or you don't, one thing is hard to deny. Most careers collapse under that level of attention. His didn't. Now, before you go, if you enjoyed this kind of deep, suspenseful documentary storytelling, please like, subscribe, and share this video. And leave a comment. What do you think was Ronaldo's hardest hidden war moment? Pressure, hate, injuries, or Portugal's expectations? And genuinely, these videos take a lot of time to research, structure, and write properly. If you want more long-form stories like this, your support really matters. One like, one comment, one share. It helps me keep making the next one. All right, that's the hidden war behind his fame. And the next story? it's going to be even darker.